This is Marcus South, a.k.a. Marty the Moth Martinez from Lucha Underground, and you're watching the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to another episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined by Jason Brooks. Jason, we are a couple of days away from Money in the Bank, which apparently me and you both forgot was happening until 30 seconds before I pressed record on this week's episode. AEW is back being live, and Monday Night Raw continues to plummet in the ratings. So, Jay, after throwing all that at you, how are you doing today? As I can't speak the English language.
Yeah, I'm okay. Just hanging in there, and just got a little workout in on my bike, and did about 150 push-ups, and trying to keep myself in some kind of shape with coronavirus here. And I brought some beer too, so it's been a good day overall, I guess. So
there you go. So like I said,
I just find it fascinating that we both literally forgot about Money in the Bank. I think that tells you all you need to know about Money in the Bank and with coronavirus, and how beyond Money in the Bank not being a good build, which we could say it is or it isn't or whatever. It's more about how there's so much more going on right now in the world, even in pro wrestling, that Money in the Bank's just been completely overshadowed.
And it's amazing. The hot shotting of AJ Styles on Monday, I guess, really did not have any effect on either one of us. I mean, I totally until I remembered that Money in the Bank was happening. AJ Styles wasn't even in our, quote unquote rundown. I forgot he was even on Raw. AJ even put in wrote somewhere that he thought that the idea that he came back right now was rushed. I mean, so AJ being back.
Oh, he himself said it was rushed.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Well, here you go. By the way, why wasn't Kevin Owens in there?
He's hurt. He's got, I think, a knee injury. He's dealing with a.
He would be the perfect, and maybe that's what happened, right? Maybe that's what happened. He would have been the perfect freaking guy to put in there. Ugh. Anyway.
Yeah, but WWE ratings continuing to tank. Not including just the idea of holidays or anything else. Lowest rating in the history of Monday Night Raw, 1.6 million viewers. I don't see it getting any better. Raw is going to try to hotshot a rating next week with promoting. Becky Lynch is going to be there, which may or may not have just told us that either Nia or someone else from Raw is winning the Women's Money in the Bank, and we're also having the return of Edge and Randy Orton coming back to the show. Do you see this getting any better sooner than later, or does it not matter? Empty arenas. Raw is just a casualty of people watching the news and the dead feel of no crowd. Maybe dead wasn't the right word there, but you have to unmute.
I was muted there. Well, one thing that we always do a rundown on what we're going to talk about in the show and things like that. And one thing we did not mention is the idea that Florida on Friday, there's so much going on, Corey. Friday, Florida said that they may let up to 25% capacity for some of these stadiums. The Dolphins apparently have a plan to let people in. So I think that could be a really, really big thing in terms of what this is all going to look like. We haven't heard anything from the WWE saying that they're going to let fans in. We haven't read anything about that or heard anything about that yet. But I think that could be a very interesting thing. As far as these ratings go, I mean, Corey, I love wrestling. You love wrestling. We're marks, right? If we were not doing a podcast, is there a pretty good chance you wouldn't watch Raw?
Not a pretty good chance. There's most weeks I almost forget, that I'm supposed to watch Raw. So, I mean.
Right? Like SmackDown, I can tell you this unequivocally, I would not watch SmackDown. Absolutely not. And I'm home on Friday nights now, unlike before. And there's no way I'd watch it, right? So if you and me, who are the marks of the marks, wouldn't watch this, then how can we expect a casual fan to watch this? They're going to go, play video games or do something on Netflix or talk to their friends or Zoom with people. Like, they're not going to sit here and watch these empty arena shows, watch a 30-minute 6-man match. Like, they're not going to do that. Now, how this opens up to fans and if there's more people there and blah, 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 I think you're seeing a window as to what we could likely see moving forward, but we'd have no idea when that's going to happen. But yeah, also the other thing is it's a bummer to watch these shows. And unlike, real sports, whatever, professional leagues, right? The thing about those sports is, one, the crowd is a big part, right? But you can watch it, and I think people are just so excited for pro sports that I think no crowd there will be okay in the short term because people are going to be so thirsty for it. Are people thirsty to see Monday Night Raw or SmackDown with no one there? I don't think so.
Were people thirsty for Monday Night Raw when there was a crowd at this point?
I mean, they got millions of people to watch them every week, and they still are, but it's a lot lower than before.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done it yet, but a couple of people I'm friends with have put on Facebook, which you can join our group on Facebook, the Work Shoot Wrestling podcast. People were saying that they were watching, I guess, on ESPN2 today, the Korean baseball. I guess they are doing that, which I don't know exactly how that works, but I guess there is.
Yeah, well, didn't it start at like 6 a.m.?
I don't know. I think there was actually a game on. I guess when we were talking about doing the show a little bit early. I think there was a game on earlier today. But
yeah, I think they started at 6 a.m. I might go back and watch. Is it on TV? Is it on
ESPN2? Yeah, we're free advertising to Disney, which really needs.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, listen, I want to know how to watch these shows, these games too. I might be watching some Korean baseball, and you can bet on it apparently too. Not that I'm into that sort of thing.
No, not at all.
But Corey, it's a bummer also watching these. Drake talked about it. We've talked about it a bunch, right? Watching choreographed wrestling with no crowd makes it seem like just
pressing.
It makes it seem even more choreographed, because the guy will rise up with the crowd. He'll get into it because of the crowd. Now it's like, they're just going through the motion. I don't know. It's just a bummer to watch. It's just a bummer to watch. So I get why no one's been watching it. I get it. And also, the quality of the shows hasn't been anything to write home about either. Unlike NXT and AEW, the last couple of weeks, they've still had really solid shows. I think AEW's been they've done great in this, with the pandemic, with the quarantine, with their shows. I think they've had by far the best shows with their video packages, creative things they've done. But, I mean, Raw and SmackDown have been awful to watch. So that's the other problem.
Yeah, it's been really hard to get into shows with no crowds. Nothing really feels that important. People that are on the shows don't feel like they're big names. And one of the biggest names in the company, you may like him or you may not, and something that's came up this week that maybe it's just the imagination of people who are bored on the internet who are making more than something it is. But WWE did a countdown during Raw of the top 10 moments involving Money in the Bank. The number one moment, which you can agree or disagree, which not the point of this conversation, was Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, I believe, 31, cashing in the Money in the Bank. And when they did the countdown, they showed the highlight of him cashing in, and the way the highlight was done was he runs down, you see, and then all of a sudden, screen goes to black for the finish, and basically you see Brock Lesnar. There was a third person in that match. That third person has not been mentioned since he pulled out for health reasons for this year's WrestleMania. That man is Roman Reigns. He's not been mentioned on TV once. The day after, they mentioned, congratulating him and being on the FS1 special for, his greatest WrestleMania matches. But besides that, Roman Reigns' name has not been mentioned. We know in the past that Vince McMahon has been a very petty man, to put it lightly. If you've watched these Dark Side of the Rings, they have not exactly always, portrayed Vince in the best light, which I'm sure is some people can consider themselves bitter for not having jobs with the company. But I don't know if this is just 1 + 1 = 2 just in the situation. But maybe if Roman Reigns was on our TV, the ratings might be better. Maybe not. But Roman Reigns has basically been erased from WWE. Jay, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like going to Twitter. I'm trying to find Roman Reigns on Twitter to see if he said anything lately. Corey, it's nuts. It's nuts. Yeah, he hasn't really said anything. Yeah, he hasn't really said anything about not being on the show or anything like that. I do think his wife is pregnant with twins, I believe. So,
Yes.
Congratulations to him and his wife and his family. I mean, that also might be putting things in perspective. He's like, fuck it. I'm a millionaire anyway. Like I don't need this. And when it's over, I'm going to come back. Like I'm not going to be gone forever. But I had leukemia. I had cancer. Why am I going to come back? They're not testing anyone. And that's the other thing we need to get to. It's kind of like a whole flowing thing where AEW has tested everyone according to Tony Khan. Everyone tested negative. They're going to tape 2 weeks of shows. Then they're going to do Double or Nothing. I don't know if they're going to do Double or Nothing live or how that's all going to work. But they're going to do it live. So, right. So it sounds like they're going to test everybody basically at the time, when they show up, right? I don't think WWE's tested anyone. I haven't heard anything from WWE that they're testing people. I know they're sanitizing the ring after every match. They're doing a bunch of those things. Here's the thing, folks. This disease, the reason why it's spreading so quickly is because a lot of people who are asymptomatic, meaning you don't have symptoms, are the ones who are spreading it. If you're sick, people are staying home for the most part because you're freaking sick. But if you're not sick, you don't know it. And so if the WWE is not testing anyone, then if I'm Reigns, why would you show up? Now, are we looking too deep into it by them editing him out? I mean, I don't know. That would be really, really messed up. The man had leukemia. The man's had a fight, with a horrible disease. And this thing kills people who are susceptible at a pretty high rate. Sounds like if you're healthy, you have a pretty good chance. But if you have any underlying conditions, this really, really could mess you up. So the idea that he has an underlying condition and this could really mess him up, could kill him, and he doesn't want to wrestle, I don't want to think that WWE is doing this on purpose. I want to think that they're doing this because they don't know how long he's going to be around. They don't know when he's going to be back. They can't plan for someone when they don't know when they're going to come back. So they're kind of keeping him off of our radar until they have a plan for him to come back. That's what I hope that they're doing. And it's not kind of, F you for not being at our empty arena, boring shows.
And let's be honest here. And I know I'm usually the guy who's more not anti-WWE, but looks at things the worst could be possible.
Yeah, you're more of a negative Nancy.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's be honest here. They also could be protecting one of their key characters also by, in this one clip, let's not show the guy who got pinned, who's one of our biggest stars.
I mean, come on.
I'm just
Triple H has lost a million times at wrestling. These guys lose all the time. It's pro wrestling. These guys lose all the time.
Triple H is also no longer an active competitor.
Yeah, but these guys lose all the time. I mean, what are we doing here?
I understand. I'm just saying, though, you could, if you wanted to give the WWE the benefit of the doubt.
I think the benefit of the doubt is they don't want to show him or talk about him. So when he appears, it's a big deal. I don't think we don't want to show him losing a match. I think they don't want to show him. They want to take him completely off the radar. So then when he makes his appearance, it's like, holy crap, here's Roman Reigns, and there's 30 people in the stands. I mean, maybe that's what the plan is.
Right. Before we move on, just want to get your quick opinion here. This past week, 1.6. The third hour of Raw, I think, was like a 1.5, which was a disaster. Like I said earlier, they're bringing back they're bringing back Edge and Orton next week. We've got the return of AJ. So some of the stars are coming back, promoting the idea that Edge and Orton are going to be there. Does that help the rating next week with the coming off of Money in the Bank? Or do you think that the rating is just going to continue to go down?
I mean, I don't know. I can't predict things like that. I have no idea. If I had to guess, I would expect they get a little bump off Money in the Bank because that's usually a fun pay-per-view where people are like, what's going to happen? Will someone cash it in?
Even though it was even happening.
Yeah, well, whatever, Corey. You know what I mean, though. But right. So Usually there'll be a little bump off of it because of the idea that who's going to cash it in, and now there's a woman Money in the Bank, a men's Money in the Bank. What's going to happen? So I guess there's that little kind of excitement of what's going to happen. So that and Orton and Edge, maybe you get a little bump, but I mean, I don't see any of this being significant until things have died down with the virus and we get some things things go quote unquote back to normal.
All right, so I think that they're going to shoot their shot here. I think the rating will go up. I don't think it's going to be a huge jump, but I think that with the return of some stars, people.
I guess, Corey, the thing is, though, what does this mean? Like, who cares? Like, who cares about one? What's the? Like, what are we talking about here? We're going over the ratings every week. What's the significance here? It goes up 1 week, it goes down 1 week. Now it's just been going down, 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 down. I get they want to pop it 1 week, but then it's going to go back down again, right? What's going to happen the June 15th episode of Raw? Who's going to care? So, right? Yeah. Is it going to go up this week? Maybe. But that's not going to be a continued pattern as long as we have this. And then the summer's coming and maybe things actually start to die down and people can go out, but they still might not be able to have many people in these at these arenas, big crowds and stuff. So then people are going to be able to go out. So people are going to get their ass out of the house. So they're not going to be around anyway. So the ratings may continue to just go down for a while. So, I mean, I don't think there's much. I don't see the end in sight, to be honest with you, in terms of the ratings. Now, do I think they'll tank completely? No. Do I think they'll hover around kind of what they are now? Probably. But I don't think 1 week's going to make a difference as to anything. I think we're going to see this continued pattern.
Well, we'll see what definitely happens.
And Roman Reigns is not going to turn things around, folks. Roman Reigns is not going to, Roman Reigns is in. No, let's start watching now. I don't think so.
Yeah, interesting storytelling might actually help. Which, let's be honest, crowd or no crowd, these stories aren't exactly been interesting to say the least. But all right, let's talk a little Wednesday night action here. AEW with another interesting show. But before we get to what happened in the ring, AEW went to taking more precautions. AEW, unlike WWE, actually mentioning the word COVID-19, actually realizing that there's real things going on outside in the world. Tony Khan was on the AEW Unrestricted podcast and spoke candidly about a lot of things that have been going on with the company, on what they had to do in finding out about everything that was going on, from idea of having to tape basically a month worth of television in basically 24 hours or so. The idea of how Chris Jericho told them that he was going to be able to make it, and Chris Jericho actually suggested the idea of him doing commentary. That was an initial idea, how they set the prototype tournament. It's a very interesting conversation where AEW has lost a lot of money based on this, on how they were, basically the highest grossing company based on, with attendance and how much money they've lost. They were expecting a huge amount of money in those weeks with Rochester and, with Jersey and a lot of their shows. But the big thing coming out was the idea they're testing everybody, which Jay had mentioned. But Jay, AEW's testing all of their employees. UFC's doing that as well. Both shows are happening in Jacksonville. What's your thoughts on AEW taking this step, and how much do you think this helps with, even just with morale within the company?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think, there's a bunch of things from that podcast that were interesting. I definitely invite everyone to go and check it out. I only read highlights. Corey listened to the whole thing. There's a bunch of things that Khan said. One of the things he talked about the momentum that they thought they were building, and now this really messes that up. Now, I do think if they continue to have solid shows, they'll be okay. But they're losing millions of dollars that they weren't anticipating. Nobody was. Now, Tony Khan's a billionaire, so they'll be able to figure it out. But it's still a bummer. As far as the tests go, I think it's tremendous. Now, how they're getting so many tests, and people are still complaining they can't get tested. I have no idea. But when you are a billionaire, maybe that's kind of how things work, and that's how we have to see society work for the most part. So I think it's great that he's been able to get everyone tested. I think it makes the talent feel more comfortable. I think you even saw that with the shows. And I mentioned this on Twitter at Work to Shoot Pod, that when you have everybody tested and he said they were all negative. When you have everybody tested and they're all negative, you can have them, in the stands. You can have them, yelling and screaming like, during that street fight match. That Kenny Omega spot was crazy, by the way. That moonsault. But you saw there were like 1 million people. There's people all over the place. You can have that because everybody tested negative. So that's like it was before, COVID-19. So I think it really opens things up. I think the shows, AEW, and the difference between NXT and AEW had so much more energy. And they only had 20 people. They had Pineapple Pete there. They had the Gun Club. They had a couple of people there. They didn't have that many people there. But just having 10, 15, 20 people in the stands to make noise gives it so much more energy. And the matches were good. It was a very good show. But so much more energy,
Yeah, and one of the things that was interesting that came out of this unrestricted interview was the idea that he got the idea. I don't know if this was in the highlights that you saw, but he got the idea for this from watching the Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel show, where that they went and they were doing that on their show, where they're having producers in the band in the studio, clapping and for the live feel. And that's where he got the idea for it. So
yeah, that's interesting. He's also been writing a lot of these shows.
Oh yeah,
that's the other thing. For better or for worse, he's really, really involved in what's going on, and they've been good shows. So, the guy's no dummy, and so he apparently knows what he's doing in terms of booking wrestling. I don't know how, but he knows what he's doing. We're going to talk about Dark Side of the Ring at some point. We talk about another Mark who has a lot of money buying a wrestling company and it being a disaster. This is a guy like you or me who just happens to be, maybe a little smarter and much, much, much richer, buying a wrestling company, and he's been booking some good stuff and doing some good things in terms of being creative and thinking outside the box and really, really good stuff. He's got to focus on the Jaguars a little bit because they're struggling. But
yeah, he mentioned that in the interview also, how he enjoys finding third day guys, but that's for another type of show. But talking about AEW as a product, one thing I want to get your opinion on: do you think that they're going way too quickly to Mr. Brody Lee in the?
Yep. Absolutely. I'm answering your question already. Absolutely. 100%. Let's calm down. He's had a couple of vignettes. He's had 3 squash matches. Now we're putting him in the main event of Double or Nothing. Let's calm down.
Do you think that was always the plan, and they had hoped that over there the month and a half or however long that would have been, that he would have gone over with the live crowd, and this would have been the progression, or the fact that they have a limited amount of guys leading up to that, he just maybe felt like the hottest commodity, and that's where they decided to go, and maybe they didn't feel like MJF was ready for that spot, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, because they were going to debut him in Rochester, where he's from, and where he's still lives. It's not like he was born there and then moved to LA. He still lives there. And I know a lot of my buddies, I lived in Rochester for a long time, and a lot of my buddies are going to go to the show because he was going to be there or whatever. I don't know. I think they were expecting a big, the crowd to really go crazy because of him being in Rochester, and that was already going to put him over with the crowd. So you're watching TV, you see Rochester, New York, they're going crazy. And then the next week they're in Cleveland or wherever they are. And then they're like, oh, this Brody Lee, people are really into him. Yeah, let's cheer for him and boo him and, wherever they're going to be, right? So they were expecting to debut him in Rochester and have the momentum build. Well, they weren't able to have that, obviously, with everything that's going on. So I think that probably was the plan. That's my take. And, you talked about MJF and how eventually that's the plan, and MJF might win the title, but I think that's gonna be more of a slower build. I don't know. I think it's really quick. I think it's really soon. I don't. I almost felt like they should have built the Swagger thing to have him go against him at Double or Nothing, but maybe Swagger wouldn't have worked out either. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't think Brody Lee is the guy, and I also think like he's been there for a month, and now he's going for the title when there's guys who have been busting their ass there since September, and now this guy's gonna come in a couple of goofy vignettes where he acts like Vince McMahon, and now he's going for the title. I don't know. The promo I thought was okay. I don't know. I've not been impressed with Brody Lee at all since he's come into to AEW.
I mean, I agree with you on the idea it's too soon. I mean, I disagree with you on the fact I've been actually very impressed with Brody. I've liked what they've done with the Dark Order. I've actually
really these goofy Vince McMahon vignettes.
They've reached me. I mean,
They've reached you. Are they? You like them because they're goofy? Are they vignettes? Good vignettes to put him over? We gotta separate sometimes what we think is entertaining and what gets over as a thing, right? What actually gets over? Are these Vince McMahon goofy vignettes? Now we don't know if it's getting over because there's no crowd, but I mean, I looking at it like, oh, they're entertaining. Oh, that's fine. Are they getting over with the crowd? I mean, as a what's the psychology behind it? He's being really mean to people, so we don't like him. I don't. To me, they haven't flushed this idea out. They haven't done enough. They haven't done enough real story with him. He comes out in his goofy suit. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And also, he could be a cult leader, but I think he is not finding his own voice in it. I don't think he's finding his own voice. He should not be coming out in a suit. Looks like a goofball. I don't think it's getting over at all. And listen, I'm a big Brody Lee fan. I think he should have been pushed way, way harder in the WWE. But I think the character's been okay. And I think you'll see that. I think this is not going to be a character that gets over when crowds come back. In my opinion, I could be completely wrong, and I hope that it works out because I love it. But I think one thing AEW has shown is their ability to change things on the fly. So if things aren't working, maybe they'll go back. But I mean, you've been impressed. I don't see it at all.
Like I said, I think that there are two projects right now from these tape shows were Lance Archer and Brody Lee, and I think both have worked in their own way. I mean, I think Lance Archer's a much bigger success.
Lance Archer's been amazing. You are the murder hawk. You come in and kill people, and he's come in and destroyed everyone. The Dustin Rhodes thing, the throwing the towel in thing, the him beating up a bunch of jobbers in that fake ring with that vignette was kind of goofy, but still okay. Jake Roberts has been great, right? That's been what he is. He's a killer, and he's been great. What is Brody Lee? What is he? The leader of a group of people, and he's kind of a goofball, and why is he wearing a suit? And I don't know. I think one thing has got over, and been great storytelling. One thing I think has been rushed, and the idea hasn't been fleshed out completely, and they're still figuring it out, and now they're hot-shotting him to the title.
I don't disagree with hot-shotting to the title, but I do think it's worked better. But the other thing on AEW, what'd you think of the idea of this bringing back Jake, who is, older in this COVID, bringing back everybody.
If he's tested negative and he's wearing a mask, it's fine.
But he is old,
if he got tested negative and he's wearing a mask, he is a grown man. If he chooses to show up, he chooses to show up. They didn't say, hey, show up or you're fired. He chose this. That was his choice.
Well, ending with that, what do you think of the segment with Brandy Rhodes, with the snake and everything else? How'd you feel that worked? Do you think that type of stuff works in 2020? Or do you think that's too much of a 1980s, early 90s gimmick with the snake and all that stuff? You think that's
listen, Jake Roberts is around here in 2020 and is pretty over. Am I wrong on that?
He's over with crowds. We don't know if he's over. He's over with us.
He's over with crowd. He seems to be pretty over with the crowds, right? So
no, has he been on with?
He's been on a couple. He's been on a couple of weeks. he's one of the greatest minds in the business. So I mean, I don't know, whatever. It's a segment and whatever. I don't know is it something if he does something like this every week or whatever, it might really lose its appeal. I think to do it one time, I think it's fine.
All right, other half of the Wednesday Night Wars, we finally had Velveteen Dream get his title shot. I didn't think it was much of a match. He did get the quote unquote pin without the referee, so I mean, you could still say that he's the uncrowned champion. So I guess he can get a title shot somewhere down the line. They continue the Dexter Loomis story of maybe he's the next challenger because he has something going on.
Dexter Loomis, the next challenger. Yeah. Let's have him beat somebody first.
That's not what you thought the direction was? He was going after.
He hasn't beat anybody.
I don't disagree.
He hasn't beat you or me. He hasn't beat Leon Ruff. I think he has beat Leon Ruff. Everybody's beat poor Leon Ruff.
Didn't you beat Leon Ruff 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think I beat Leon Ruff. Troy the Dog beat Leon Ruff last week.
That was our main event, right? I think.
So I don't know. Sorry, I'm just throwing my 2 cents in there. That'd be absurd. But I really like his character. I mean, I really enjoy his character, but I don't really know what they're doing here.
Right, but one of the things that we spoke about before the show is it felt like a very weird NXT program. None of the matches were super long. None of the matches really felt like they had a great direction. I mean, we saw the return of Rhea Ripley in the Io Shirai match, which I guess Io was most likely on the verge of losing because her leg was basically being destroyed. So I mean, I guess you're protecting Io, not taking a clean loss most likely, but that didn't feel like it was going anywhere. I guess you're setting up Io versus Rhea, Rhea maybe in a number one contenders match maybe down the line. I mean, I don't know. Nothing really.
It was a weird show, and I, Corey had watched the show before me, and we talked about it. We talked about doing our podcast before, and I said to you, it was a weird show, and it was a strange show. I don't know. It wasn't a bad show, but it certainly wasn't a good show. I mean, I feel like Killer Cross entrance was longer than some of the matches on the show.
It was better than
matches. Yeah, a little crazy, but no, I don't know. I thought it was a weird show. I think they really tried to cram everything in because they wanted to be a big show to get ratings, and I don't think it really worked. And I thought something was up. I thought something was up when they were having 2 title matches on the same night.
I mean, they were up AEW was up 5% this past week, and NXT was up 4%. So both shows were up in the ratings. So people had, I guess, a little bit more interest compared to Raw, which nobody's watching.
Well, isn't it interesting though that now listen, it's a different audience, right? Raw's getting 1.6 rating. Millions of people are watching that still. Millions of people are not watching NXT or AEW, but it seems like the ratings are holding still a little bit, maybe even creeping back up. I think the quality of the shows is obviously a big part of that, but it's just an interesting observation. And I didn't think NXT was bad. I just thought it was they tried to just throw a bunch of rarely in a week of watching NXT do I say it's a missable show. If you miss the show, you're fine. I felt like this week was, if you missed the show, it was fine. We talked about Io last week. I thought something goofy would happen to protect Io. The world title match, I thought Cole would win. The results that happened were very predictable. Which is maybe they're waiting for takeovers to really do some big stuff, but just was a very ho-hum show for me.
Yeah, so while we're still on wrestling, let's do a quick, 4 or 5 minutes here before we forget about it again. Money in the Bank. Do we see anything of any importance happening in the non-Money in the Bank matches? Can we just get rid of those pretty fast?
I don't even know what the non-Money in the Bank matches are.
All right.
I'll let you can, other than the title matches. Are there any matches other than the title matches?
I don't know. I was just gonna say off the top of my head. Drew versus Seth. I don't see any title change there.
Definitely not. Do they protect Seth by having some goofy finish?
Possibly.
Yeah, that I see that. I could see that.
Bailey versus Tamina. Do we see a title change there?
No, absolutely not. I think they're building for Bailey versus Sasha.
I would hope so. There's no Raw match for the women's title. You've got
isn't it? Where is Becky Lynch? Why has she not been on these shows?
I think. Well, she was she just had a match. She just was on an episode of Billions. There's rumors that she's.
They taped that forever ago. They're not taping any shows because of COVID.
Right. We can get this in a future week, but there's rumors she might be doing something with Marvel coming up. So who knows? But I guess maybe she's been doing other stuff. But I don't know. But that's it.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, where's she been? I mean, it would be a cheap way to have have her go against, I don't know. They want to pump up Liz Morgan, who I think is not great, by the way.
Oh, I think she's actually one of the people that has been really good in these.
She's on the mic. She's fine. In the ring, she's not good.
I think she's done a lot better. She's not great yet, but
again, this is let's just let's root for the underdog and say she's better. She's not good in the ring compared to what they have. You talk about Ruby Riott, Sasha, Charlotte, all the women in NXT. She's not better than any of them. The women in the NXT roster, as a pro wrestler, she is not better than. She's better than Aaliyah and Xia Li. That's about where it ends. She's not good in the ring. She's not, and this is a Vince McMahon wants to push her. Just because someone wants to be pushed doesn't mean they're doing well. It means that they're being pushed.
Well, this will be quick, but hold on a second. Haven't we learned over the years that there's multiple parts of being a professional wrestler? It's just not what you could do in the ring. It's how you talk on the mic. It's your charisma. There's multiple parts. Not everybody's got to be the greatest in-ring performer.
Is she that charismatic, or is this just a matter of someone wanting to push her? Just because Ruby Riott's better on the mic than she is, and a better pro wrestler than she is, yet she beat her twice. Why? Oh, she's so impressive in the ring? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. She's so much better on the mic. Absolutely not. Someone wants to push her, and that's why she's in the spot that she's in.
All right,
which is fine. Which is fine. God bless her. She's not a terrible person or whatever, and she's not a horrible wrestler. But to say she's good, that's not. That's not fact. She's not good.
She's improved. I'm not saying she's great. I'm just saying she's improved. Like
great. She was
terrible one time. Dana Brooke has gotten a little bit better over the years. I just think people have gotten better. People were terrible. They've put in time and they've gotten better. Some people
is she good enough where she deserves to beat Ruby Riott twice in a row?
They maybe not see anything in Ruby Riott right now, and not everybody's going to be on top at the same time. I mean, maybe Ruby Riott will get a storyline at some point, but right now. They feel they want to take a chance on Liv and see what they can do with her. If she doesn't do anything, then they'll move on from her. But we always try that they don't do anything with anybody. They decide to go and take a chance on Liv Morgan for maybe a couple of weeks, and we'll see what they do with it.
Taking a chance on the right person would be my thing.
Maybe
anyway, you love Liv Morgan. The Office does apparently. Why not put her in the title match? I mean, right? I don't know. Maybe she'll be the next Raw Women's Champion. I don't know.
Who knows? Maybe at some point. But that went on a weird turn there. But going back for quickly here because we don't want to get totally bogged down with many time we have. We've got a SmackDown 4-way match for the tag team titles. To the Forgotten Sons, New Day, the Lucha House Party somehow never win any matches, and Miz and Morrison. Do they put the titles back on Miz and Morrison? Do they make the move to the Forgotten Sons that thank God are no longer on NXT?
Here's a better question. Do I care? And the answer is no. Moving on.
All right. I'm guessing we might have Sonya versus Mandy Rose. I mean, they face each other.
I think they face each other on SmackDown, aren't they?
I would guess we won't have a finish and they'll face each other on Sunday. I'm guessing.
I think they should build that. Well, I feel like they should have that match and then have it be a goofy finish and then build it up on another show and do some type of no DQ street fight. Sonya Deville's, you talk about someone who's been good. Sonya Deville has been good. she has been fantastic.
Oh yeah, she's taken this opportunity and run with it. I mean,
she has been good.
yeah. I mean, one of the things that Tony Khan had said in this unrestricted podcast was that people who showed up, nobody had to be there, but they had 25% of the roster, and the people that were there he's going to remember those people who showed up and helped out in this terrible situation. And some people are going to shine. And Sonya Deville has shined in this opportunity.
Yeah, she's been great. We'll see if she continues to get that because, they love Mandy Rose, and usually the babyface wins these feuds. I mean, where does Sonya Deville go after this? I just worry that this is her kind of time, her opportunity, and then she's like the Marty Jannetty. She goes down, and then we never see her again. So that's my worry for her. I think she's tremendous, though, and she's good in the ring.
And the last match that hasn't been said yet, but I'm guessing is going to happen, will be Street Profits versus the Viking Raiders. I'm guessing that Street Profits have to win here. They've lost against them every single time, and I don't see the point of taking the titles off of the Street Profits, who, for 2 weeks, Bianca Belair was on TV, and now we don't see her anymore.
Yeah, well, again, they don't. They're figuring all this out, right? So, yeah, I think the Street Profits win. I think they've kind of built up the whole thing. The Street Profits can't beat the Viking Raiders. They're the bugaboo. So I think they will avenge that loss, avenge the many, many losses they've had to the Viking Raiders, and get the victory. So, yeah, I think that's what will happen. That match is, could be interesting. I'm looking forward to that more than a 4-way tag with, 2 jobber tag teams.
Yeah, I understand. So what's your thoughts on the idea that both the men's and women's Money in the Bank are happening at the same time? And I guess they'll be happening throughout the night. So it's not that I heard this and I was like, that's different.
Wait, they're going to do it while there's like other matches going on and then they're going to just film. You know what? Here's the thing.
Throughout the night.
It's going to be different. It's going to be different. It's going to be interesting. I will probably live tweet it at Work Shoot Pod. I think it's going to be something to be live tweeted for sure. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I have no idea what to make of it. I think it's going to be fascinating. And I didn't know they were filming this throughout the night. Oh my God. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Who do you think's going to win these? Who do you think's going to win these matches? You need me to tell you who's in them, or do you have a good idea?
I mean, you could tell me the women's in a second, but I mean, I'd have to go with AJ or Aleister Black for the men's.
All right.
And then the women's who's in that? Do we have Lacey Evans in that?
Lacey Evans.
Maybe Lacey Evans gets the win. Who is Lacey Evans? Go through the list here.
Lacey, Dana Brooke, and Carmella.
No, they have no chance.
All right, and then we've got Asuka, Baszler, and the woman who loves to injure people, Nia Jax.
So Nia Jax, Baszler, or Lacey Evans, one of those 3,
or Asuka.
No.
Okay.
No. I think Asuka now is like she's the person you beat before you go for the title. I think that's kind of her. If there is a woman's Intercontinental Champion, she would be the women's Intercontinental Champion. I think that's her level. Now, I mean, her level's the world champion. She's probably the best female wrestler in the world. But that's where they kind of see her. So I don't see her winning. It might be a good spot for Lacey Evans, although I think her gimmick when she's as a baby face, where she's a military mom and that's her thing, I don't see it. I think she's much better as a heel. Nia Jax, they've been pumping her up as the favorite. And then Baszler, who lost at WrestleMania. It could really be any of those 3. I couldn't tell you. I'm going to say Nia Jax just because you've got the whole built-in story with her and Becky Lynch. It's an easy story to go to. And they could play off that for a long time. And Nia could just beat up all these women. But usually you want the Money in the Bank winner to kind of not be a very, like a Carmella or, more of an underdog type. So, I don't know. We'll see where they go with it. But if I had to guess, I'd say Nia Jax.
I'm going to go with Shayna Baszler. I think that they most likely wanted to put the title on her at WrestleMania, but are going to go and use the idea of having this who knows when option with the Money in the Bank.
You know what this will tell you? This will tell you what they think of her. Because there's the rumors that Vince doesn't like her, blah, 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 blah. And there's always these things that come out that are not corroborated by anyone, and we have no idea. But we've heard that. And if we'll know how Vince feels about her for Money in the Bank. If she wins, we know what that is there. So we'll see.
So the men's, we've got Baron Corbin, Daniel Bryan, holy crap, I forgot the third SmackDown guy.
It's going to come down to AJ and Black. Those are the two guys.
Okay, and then we got Rey Mysterio.
He's got no chance. Although his promo was tremendous on Raw. He's become this really good promo out of nowhere. Like, he was not this good of a promo years ago. You talk about guys improving. He's really become a good promo. I think it's got to be. I think before, like during the Royal Rumble, the way they've been building him, pre-COVID, I think the plan has been to have Aleister Black win the Money in the Bank. That's just the way they've set it up. The way he really has been protected, even though he hasn't won a title or anything like that. Every big feud with Buddy Murphy, with Lashley, he's won every feud that he's been in essentially since he came on the Raw. They have him beat jobbers all the time. He hasn't lost any big matches. They've done a great job with him. I think he's the guy they want to win this. Now, with COVID and everything, I don't know how they decide to change things. But I really think Black is the guy they're going to give it to. AJ rising from the dead, I guess you can give it to him. Maybe make him feel better about them firing his best friends. I don't know.
I'm going to go with the opposite. I'll go with AJ. Because I don't think Aleister needs it. I think his character doesn't need to just be sitting around having to be carrying around, the briefcase all the time. Not a great reason why, but I'll go with AJ. I have no idea who the messenger is, who's telling the truth, but apparently a lot of people online.
It's CM Punk. We all know that.
Sure. So it's not going to be Ali and Chad Gable, with their 14th different storyline.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Whenever WWE does this stuff, and Corey, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Whenever they have these mystery stories and what's going to happen and who's it going to be and what's the buildup going to be after, isn't it 99% of the time disappointing? Either the person's disappointing or what they do with them after is disappointing. I have absolutely no expectations of this. I'm expecting this to be disappointing. Maybe it'll be Baron Corbin again or whatever. I'm expecting this to be disappointing. So I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was 100% times disappointing, but yeah. So a couple of quick hitters here. One of the few companies in the world that's being responsible when it comes to their talent and what's right for in the world. New Japan Pro Wrestling has taken another step of canceling more shows. Best tournament in the world, best of the Super Juniors. Sorry, the second best tournament in the world. G1 is most likely the best, but the second best tournament in the world, best of Super Juniors, has been canceled. And also the show that was going to be in the Garden this year have both been canceled. So New Japan continues to cancel shows. Quick thoughts on that. Of course, it's the right thing to do, but at some point, New Japan, do you think they're going to buckle and have to have shows without people? Or do you think they could continue?
Well, I think the issue is that a lot of the talent they get is not from Japan. Right? Like it's the flying thing is still an issue, and people getting old. It's a lot going on still. So I think that's a big issue. If it was Okada against Tanahashi, they could have that match. They're there, but you're flying in people from all over the world. I think that's where things become pretty difficult. Look at what we've seen with Jordan Devlin and people from Europe trying to get over to the U.S. to do shows. They can't. They're not letting people come over. So if you're a guy in the U.S. and you fly to Japan, they might not let you in. So, they don't have it. It's not that you could say they're being responsible, which they are, but I don't think they have a choice. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that's the bigger issue rather than, they're being this great responsible company, which I think they are. I give them that. but I think they're doing it a little bit more out of necessity than choice.
Yeah, ROH canceled all their shows in, I believe, in June. So also they're canceling.
And by the way, quick thing for Ring of Honor. They're doing some like packages where they're highlighting guys. They did a thing on Flip Gordon last week where they did like a 30-minute special just on him and his life. And
oh, really?
it's on YouTube. You can check it out. It was really well done. It was really cool talking about his injuries. And I mean, listen, by the way, if they can't make money on this guy being a babyface after that, they need to cancel the company. Like, it was just a really good story. It made you feel good for the guy and everything he's come through and all the injuries. And they showed his girlfriend on there and how he's rehabbed. I mean, it was a great story. And so I hope that's what Ring of Honor starts to do. They do profiles on different guys. And we'll see. So that's really, really good for Ring of Honor that they're doing that sort of thing. I think that's probably Marty Scurll's idea, if I had to guess. So yeah. So, and it's good that they're canceling shows. I mean, again, they're not. It's different because their shows are for a live crowd. They're not. It's not just a TV show. So it doesn't really make any sense for them to tape shows either. What are they going to do? A pay-per-view with no one there? So it doesn't really make any sense for them either.
Another story that we saw this week, just quickly, was Jeff Cobb was on AEW a couple of months back for 2 weeks, and he was put over as this big-time possibility of a signee. Cody had said that he was going to be on for multiple weeks and something that they would do something with going forward. Made to look like a big star, taking out Jon Moxley, then losing to him clean. And all of a sudden, we haven't seen him again. We thought maybe initially it was maybe because of COVID and things had changed, but Jeff Cobb came out and said that basically the company never got back to him, that they wanted him again. So it's interesting that we praise AEW for being this great organization that makes no mistakes. It looks like Cobb is going to be a free agent, do what he wants right now, and we'll see how that works forward. If he comes back to Ring of Honor, goes back to New Japan, he's one of the big free agents out there who hasn't signed with anybody. With all these other people been released by the WWE, how that affects his future as being, the big name on the block with Rusev and other people coming out there. Yeah,
well, Corey does this thing where he throws his opinion in there while he throws his opinion in there without like you knowing what his opinion is. As he talked, I kind of threw AEW under the bus there. Listen, it's as simple as this. The guy's a free agent. He doesn't want to sign anywhere, it sounds like. He didn't want to sign anywhere. Wanted to keep his options open. AEW said they would use him. They decided, we're done. I think maybe Lance Archer was they have a lot of freaking people on the roster they need to figure out what to do with. They're not a 3-hour show. And they decided we're good for now. Doesn't mean we can't bring them back. Doesn't mean we can't heat them up again. It means that for now they're good. So I don't think there's an anti-AEW thing. I don't think it's an anti-anything thing. I think Jeff Cobb is someone who, when Samoa Joe came to NXT, he was pretty much a free agent, and they didn't know whether they would keep him, what would happen with him. And then the crowd went crazy. His shirt was the number one selling shirt on WWE Shop, and they're like, holy shit, we got to sign him. So I think the first couple of months he was there, he wasn't even under contract. So, sometimes, and he wanted to kind of keep his options open as to see. And, then they made him a good offer and he decided to stay. So, guys have options, and it'll be interesting. The bigger question is when, things, hopefully go back to normal at some point, what happens with all these guys? Do we see guys do a lot of one-offs? Zack Ryder talked about wanting to wrestle in Japan. It'd be interesting, him in the G1. I don't know how that's going to work, but whatever. Right? Like these guys wrestling, in New Japan, in Ring of Honor, NWA, Impact. There's so many options for these guys now to do a lot of one-offs. It'll be interesting to see how that all comes back, because I don't think any of these major companies are going anywhere. I think they're all going to they're going to lose money and they're going to figure it out, right? I think the smaller independents that we don't really hear of are the ones that could struggle. But it'd be interesting to see if we see these free agent guys do more one-offs. I suspect that we will.
Other story that to get into quickly, ACH, formerly of Ring of Honor, New Japan, WWE. He was a big part of, we thought it was going to be 205 Live. A couple of months ago, decided to let his mouth get him in trouble and was quickly gone from basically the industry. Went on a podcast this past week and basically gave his side of the story, explaining that, he let the better of his emotions get the better of him. Jay, what was your thoughts on that? You read the article, a little bit more input on that than I did. So
yeah, so I'll kind of read his quote directly. I was having the time of my life there, I really was. I enjoyed my time there, I really did. But then when they released that shirt, it was when I got angry. Essentially, WWE released a shirt that was, kind of racist. ACH at least felt that way. I made comments that I'm not going to take back because that's how I feel. Now, could I have said them better? Absolutely. I said a lot of things out of anger. If I would have said those things a little bit more intelligently and calmly and came from a real place, not an angry place, I think it would have been okay. And then he goes on to talk about, doing things differently, talking about issues that he has, maybe not, he's another quote. I'm not going to go out and be like, sorry, guys, mental health issues, because people deal with that stuff in serious ways. That's a serious issue. I'm not going to publicly say things like that to help smooth things over. That's not the type of person I am. But he does talk about, he tweeted too much. He does talk about having basically a breakdown. He does talk about, I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed, a lot of people. So he really goes into some regret. So I think there's two things. There's the idea that he really felt strongly about what he felt about, that the shirt was racist, which is his right to say for sure. I didn't even see the shirt, so I don't even know. And I'm African-American, so I have very strong opinions about a lot of stuff too, but I didn't see the shirt, so I don't know. So there's his view that the shirt was racist. Totally get that. Totally get him being angry about that if that's how he felt. There's the other idea of you work for a company. How do you go about that? A company that gave him a shot at the NXT title, looked like they were pushing him to a certain extent, and, maybe they didn't realize or whatever. Then there was some miscommunication with getting the shirt taken down and not taken down, and he was upset about that. And he said he handled it incorrectly. And I think Twitter is a beast, man. And when you've got stuff going on in your life, when you have things happening, stay off of Twitter. Stay off of Twitter if you can. Obviously, we talk about the podcast. We have a Twitter account for the show. We have our own personal Twitter accounts. But, man, stay off of it if you're angry, if you're upset. It's not going to do any good. And this guy's career, and he had a good career in front of him. He's 32 years old. Everything was coming together for him now. And it just, it blew up on him. So we'll see. I mean, he talked about retirement, which I don't think he's going to retire now. He might come back. So I think we'll see him come back at some point. Probably not in the WWE, but, I think we'll see him come back at some point. He's a good performer. He's a good wrestler. He's a charismatic guy. And I see him doing something down the road.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It was the Jordan Miles T-shirt where the way they made Jordan Miles come out, it looked like the old minstrel thing with the teeth, big teeth. And when I saw it, I didn't see it that way. But I mean, like I said, I'm not African American, so I mean, certain things you're not going to see initially with those eyes because you're not going to be focused in that respect. Whereas certain things, like if it was about being Jewish content, might affect me more than someone who isn't at first. So I can see how that can be construed. But like I said, I've seen the shirt multiple times. I didn't see a big, smiling white teeth of face. Jordan Miles, aka ACH, saw it differently. He's allowed his opinion, and I don't know if I would have handled it that way. But you mature as you go.
I mean, listen. He agrees he shouldn't have handled it that way. So it's not even. I think it sounds like that's not even up for debate. And I remember at the time, I was like, "What's going on with him?" He's like wilding out. Like it wasn't just, "Hey, I'm mad about the shirt." Like he was yelling at random people on Twitter. Like he was going crazy. And apparently he did. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully he gets himself back on track. I think he's a good performer, and I hope the best for the guy.
Absolutely. And I guess our last thing, as in most weeks, it is Dark Side of the Ring. This was episode on the UWF. Herb Abrams, something that neither one of us really even knew anything about.
I knew that Dr. Death, Steve Williams, was the champion because in old wrestling magazines they would have all the promotions, and somehow UWF got in there. I don't know how, but they were, maybe because they were on TV. And I remember reading about Dr. Death, Steve Williams being the champion, but they were in California, so you couldn't, see them. Interestingly enough, in Reseda, isn't that where PWG is?
Yep.
So it's funny how that, how that kind of, how things change and evolve and stuff like that. PWG, if you guys don't know, one of the major independent, wrestling companies, in the country, and somewhat, a company that spawned some of the great, wrestlers that we see today. So yeah, that part I found interesting.
But the thing that, like I said, was the third highest rating that they got this season, which, another good sign for Vice. Thought it was a good one. I didn't think it was by far the best or the worst they've done. Herb was apparently a very interesting character. One thing I took from it was in the first, 10, 15 minutes, the idea of how this sounded a lot like what AEW could have been if Tony Khan didn't actually know what he was doing. With the idea of a money mark bought, a wrestling company with all the major stars that weren't in WWE at the time. They got TV really quickly, and they were going to go and take over the world and everything else. And all of a sudden, it all went crumbling, and it just died. And he was just a bigger than life character. And I don't know. I mean, I wish once again, like you say, multiple weeks, this maybe was like an hour and a half instead of an hour. But I'm really looking forward to the Road Warriors next week because I know about the Road Warriors.
Yeah, I think the problem with this one was the timeline. They didn't do a really good job of telling you the timeline. It was about Herb Adams, and he did coke, and he had prostitutes, and he brought wrestlers in, and then he didn't pay them, and then he died, and then why'd he die? And then there's people crying. There was like no timeline for anything. It was like this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. So I almost wanted to go back and like Wikipedia the UWF because I was very kind of confused with the timeline. So I don't think they did a really good job of explaining kind of what was going on. Because at one point they had that pay-per-view that was a disaster. Then they have a show. Then he can't pay people.
Mm-hmm.
And so then people want to throw him off the roof. And then he had another show after that.
Didn't it sound like, you know what they made it? I'm sorry to interrupt you. They made him sound like the combination of, like I said, what AEW could become if it all goes off the rails. They made him sound like a Paul Heyman type of character who couldn't pay anybody, but it was this charismatic figure that everyone was under the spell of. I mean, they almost made it sound like Herb Abrams was this combination of all these other wrestling figures in history, but he was just the worst form of it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put him on a Paul Heyman. I think because he wasn't a wrestling genius, he just had a lot of money.
Right, but
I wouldn't even put him under a Tony Khan. I think would be a little bit better because Tony Khan was kind of Tony Khan is a mark who had a lot of money and started a wrestling company. But even different than those two, there was no where Tony Khan has a base. He had the Young Bucks, he has Omega, he has Cody Rhodes, who are kind of his board, right? That they're the foundation of the company. This guy was just flying off the seat of his pants. And he was also coked out and a mess the whole time. So I think it was an interesting documentary to look back on it. We knew it was going to end up with him dying. I felt like, unfortunately. But I think I don't know. And then they're like at the end, they're like, "Oh, it could have been something." It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. They did have a lot of guys: Mr. Wonderful, Dr. Death, Mick Foley. They did have a lot of guys there, but. And the one guy at the end crying, the Stevie Wild thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was another sad wrestling documentary, as most of them really appear to be. I just feel like this one was kind of scatterbrained, and we didn't hear enough about timelines. It was more just about him doing drugs all the time and being a nut job. But yeah. So overall, it was okay. I would say that this is one of my, I don't know, I want to say least favorite ones, but I feel like it could have been better, in my opinion.
Agreed. All right. You know what? I think we covered a lot of ground this week. I think it's time that Jay lets everybody know how they can follow the show on Twitter and everywhere else. Jay, take it away.
All right. You can find us on Facebook, the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. We post the podcast, we post articles, things like that. We're very active on Twitter at Work Shoot Pod, WORKED, Shoot Pod, all one word. We post articles, we do polls, we put the podcast up there. So check us out. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Review us on iTunes. If you do, we'll read it on the air. Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast, or give us 5 stars. Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast, give us 5 stars. Review us. You can give us 5 stars and then trash us. I mean, we don't care. And we'll read it on the air. But yeah, no. And just we got a lot of ways to get a hold of us. We look forward to connecting with you guys.
And of course, take a listen to our sister podcast, You Don't Know Jackie, every Wednesday. And
hopefully I'll appear on there someday.
I was just about to invite you to come back onto the show, but after that, maybe not. But just want to say, in 2 weeks, Dark Side of the Ring will have a documentary on Owen Hart. But today would have been Owen Hart's birthday, so memory to the King of Hearts. But Jason, as always, the final word.
I think we're done here. See ya.